Well, I did what they told me in my 20s. I got a good job, I saved my money diligently. In fact, growing up, I was convinced that real success meant owning one of those houses in those cookie cutter developments in a planned community. Gotta have the granite countertops. But something fell off. I was working hard, but I was not living the kind of life that I had imagined. And I started realizing that a lot of the money advice we have been told doesn't actually work today. That's what today's video is about. I'm gonna break down the 13 most common traps that quietly keep people stuck in a rat race they don't even wanna be in. These are the habits that make you feel like you're being responsible, but your bank account and more importantly, your rich life never really seems to grow. And number 11 is the one that I see the most. It's the one that actually drives me absolutely nuts. You know, a lot of people don't stop to ask, what did I actually learn about money growing up? The truth is we absorb our money beliefs from our parents, friends, social media, and then most of the time we quietly believe it. You know, we believe things like, we don't talk about money because our parents said it. Money changes people, which implies if you make money, you're gonna become a bad person. Investing is gambling. Imagine hearing those things as a kid. Those scripts can run your life for decades without you even realizing it. Suddenly, 30 years later, you feel guilty spending money, you avoid investing, or you just assume you're bad with money. These are invisible scripts, and they are some of the most destructive patterns I've seen in people I've coached. You know, I used to tell myself, work for 40 years, retire at 65, then I finally get to have fun. No, thank you. I don't want to live that kind of life anymore. The future is not guaranteed. In fact, I bet all of us know somebody who passed away before they had a chance to enjoy what they had saved. That is why I started traveling more. That is why I created a vision along with my wife of taking a 6-week honeymoon. And I made a rule for myself. If I can be at someone's birthday anywhere across the country, I will. That shift in the way that I thought about money changed everything. Because money is not just about saving. It's about living your rich life. So choose your words carefully, because the stories you repeat become your identity and they become your reality. And of course, the good news is you can actually rewrite your negative beliefs. Like this, you can say, money is a skill that I can learn. Money is a tool for my rich life. Investing is how true wealth is built, and I can invest starting today. In fact, one of the ways I help people rewrite their beliefs is by showing them my conscious spending plan, which you can get for free in the description below. You have to remember, a lot of people think budgeting means restriction. The conscious spending plan flips that completely. It's about spending guilt-free on the things you love while automatically saving and investing for your future. You actually don't need to feel guilty about spending money. You just need a plan that actually works with how you live. Now, when you change your beliefs, your behavior will start changing too. But even if you fix your beliefs, there is something else that quietly shapes your entire financial future, and a lot of people don't even think about it. You've heard the saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I find that to kind of be true with your finances too. Like if everyone around you complains about money or they avoid investing, that's probably going to be you. If you find that the people around you always insist nobody gets ahead, there's no way we can ever get ahead, the world's against us, that starts to feel normal. And you'll start saying things like, we're all living paycheck to paycheck. Not true. Credit card debt is just another part of life. Not true. Pretty soon you are trapped and you don't even realize why. Something really interesting recently happened on my YouTube channel. Somebody left a comment on one of my videos insisting that the average American under 40 is broke. So I know that's not true. I actually cited actual data from the federal government for the median household. Under the age of 35, the median household net worth is $39,000. That income of that same age group is $60,000. And for all ages, the balance in their checking and savings account is $8,000. They didn't want to believe that their tiny, narrow experience was not the whole picture, so they got mad at me. But when your entire community around you starts to say things like everybody's broke, everybody's paycheck to paycheck, it actually starts to feel true. On the other hand, if all of your friends drive $80,000 trucks, that starts to feel normal and you'll probably get one too. If they say investing is risky, you'll avoid it. If they blow all their money in Vegas, so will you. When I started spending time with people who saved diligently, who invested, who negotiated their salaries, it rewired the way that I saw money. I was not jealous. I was curious. I didn't say that's not realistic. In fact, growing up, we couldn't afford to go in a lot of restaurants, especially expensive ones. But walking by, I always knew one day I'll eat there. Think about the difference in how I approached that. I wasn't saying, those eating in there. They have a bread basket. What is that? I don't know. Who needs a bread basket? I'm fine with one. No, I said, can't afford it today. But someday I know I will be walking in there and eating. And I do. This is the point I want for you. I did not say that's not realistic. I said, what are they doing to be able to afford to eat there? And what can I learn from that? The people around you determine so much of the way you look at life. In fact, a lot of them will directly affect your financial ceiling. So be aware of who you surround yourself with. And it's not just who you're around, it's also who you are listening to. Who do you actually take money advice from? Is it your broke friend who has strong opinions on investing? Is it your parents who never really taught you anything about money, but now they insist you need to buy a house? Is it your coworker who read one article about the market crashing and they pulled all their money out and now they're telling you to do the same thing? You know, bad advice actually sounds safe. A lot of people use caution to seem smarter than they are. The market is crashing. It sounds smart because you know something that they're not telling you. You know what actually doesn't sound as smart, but actually is way more profitable? Hey, you should probably invest automatically every single month and invest for 30 or 40 year time horizons. Oh, sounds pretty simple. Somehow doesn't ring as smart as the friend who's buying and selling and trading and doing all this stuff. Now listen, let me ask you something. If I asked you, would you trade places with that person, financially speaking? You would laugh. Of course you don't want their life, but yet you're listening to their advice. So here's my simple rule. Only take advice from people who have actually built the kind of life you want. Do they invest regularly? Are they confident because they read books like my New York Times bestsellers? Do they live their version of a rich life? If not, ignore them. It's okay. You don't have to take advice equally from everybody. Now, sometimes it's not even bad advice that keeps people stuck. It's actually just complete silence. And for couples, this next one destroys more relationships than you can imagine. I see this all the time on my podcast, couples who completely avoid talking about money. In fact, most couples only really talk about money 4 times in their entire relationship. More commonly, I will see one person handling the finances, they're the money person, the other person avoids it entirely. And they tell themselves, oh, they're better at money, I'm not so good at math, they're fine, as long as we don't fight, it's okay. But behind the scenes, resentment builds. One person feels controlled, the other can feel unappreciated. That financial misalignment grows wider and wider, especially if you have children, especially if you buy a house, especially if one of you wants to change jobs or retire early. Until one day, usually triggered by some momentous life change, things explode. I've coached couples on my podcast who have been married for over 10 years, 20 years sometimes, couples who have millions of dollars, and many of them have never actually talked about money in a substantive way.
Who brings up money in conversation? Either of you?
We don't really talk about it, huh?
Not really.
But there's a better way, and you can do it. You can make money a regular, calm, proactive conversation. You can do this by having a monthly money date. Even my wife and I do this. In fact, I just sent the agenda for this week's conversation yesterday. Last night, I finished up the agenda for our meeting. I sent her a link. I added a couple of items that I had to update on, something that I want her to update on, and I gave her a couple of days to review it before we meet. This is how you get proactive with your money. You review your accounts together. You set goals, rich life visions, and you talk about what that looks like together. In fact, we're going to be sitting down and talking about some of the travel that we're going to be doing towards the end of the year and next year. That is on the agenda. Think about how fun of a conversation this is going to be. Now, when couples talk about money openly, before there's a problem, money suddenly becomes something that connects them instead of driving them apart. And if you have kids, let them see you talking about money. In fact, talk to them about it too. You can break those generational money trauma cycles instead of perpetuating them by having open, healthy conversations about money with them. But even if you get all of this right, your beliefs, your peer group, who you listen to, even your communication, there's another trap that can quietly hold people back for decades. And this is the number one mindset I see over and over in people who struggle to build wealth. I hear it all the time. The system is rigged. My parents never taught me about money. The economy is so bad. Who can do that in this economy? How can anyone get ahead? Now, I have to admit, I have a soft spot for this because in the personal finance world, there are not many people talking about systemic problems. Like, for example, housing. Housing is not just you wanting a fancy living room. Housing is historically unaffordable for a systemic reason. And yet, I believe that we can talk about systemic reform and also take personal responsibility for our decisions. Does luck play a role? Of course it does. I'm one of the luckiest guys on the planet. I was born to two educated parents. I get the chance to be here and talk to you about how to live a rich life. I'm healthy. I feel very fortunate. And also, I took responsibility and made certain decisions that have made me be able to live a very rich life. Think about some of the ways that people blame the system, and maybe they should, but they don't take their own personal responsibility. Maybe they don't apply for better jobs. Maybe they don't invest because they tell themselves that's for rich people. Maybe they keep blaming someone else, their parents, their friend, their boss, but every year they keep falling behind. Can we take another approach? Can we take extreme ownership over our rich lives? I want to because nobody's coming to save me, and I don't think anybody's coming to save you. And I actually think that's great news because it means you don't have to wait for anyone. You can take control of what you can control. And those things include your skills, like learning the skill of investing, learning the skill of how to become great at your job and negotiate your salary. Those things can change your life and you can take control of them. Now, I hear people saying this. They'll say stuff like, I'm careful, I budget, I try not to overspend, or I know I've been bad. Can we just look at some real freaking numbers? 45.2% of US households carry credit card debt with a median balance of $2,700. Now, that debt carries an average interest rate of 24%. Let me say that again, 24%. At that rate, making minimum payments, like the interest plus 1% of balance, would take you 18 and a half years to pay that off. And you would have paid $4,700 in interest, more than what you originally owed. So why do so many people fall into this trap? Why do so many people think it is acceptable to have credit card debt? In part, I think because a lot of people don't really understand how interest rates work. And they blur the line between what they need and what they want. I need to unwind. A few nights out won't hurt. We need to take this vacation before the kids get older. I need to go shopping because I have nothing to wear. Do you need to? Should I start a service where you email me a question of, Ramit, do I need to do this? And then I simply reply back by saying no? What do you think? And by the way, I'll charge $250 a month and it will still be cheaper than the interest you're paying to those credit card companies. Leave a comment below and tell me you want to sign up for Ramit's NAS service, No as a Service. You know, people rationalize spending more than they can truly afford because they're not really in touch with their numbers. Most people make financial decisions on pure vibes. Oh, I feel like Thai food tonight. I feel like buying an iPhone. But every time you put something on credit that you cannot afford today, you are actually stealing from your future self. You're paying a premium for something that you cannot afford. So instead of asking, can I afford the monthly payment? You should be asking yourself, can I afford to pay for this in full today? And if you can't, the answer is really easy. You don't buy it. We have a simple policy in our household, no credit card debt. No way! Why would we ever do that? We simply would not allow that to happen. And that is exactly the type of intolerance that I want for you. I know everybody wants to talk about inclusivity and tolerance. I am intolerant about credit card debt, and you should be too. For large purchases, I recommend you plan ahead for what you want. Oh, you can't afford it today? Fine. Put an automatic savings plan in place, and 6 months, 12 months, 18 months from now, go buy it and be gleeful because you saved for it. That's how you do it. And pay in full whenever possible. Now, if you do carry a balance, this is a major red alert. You should be making it a top priority to pay off your high interest debt. Now, I know a lot of people will hear this, they'll go the opposite direction. Okay, Ramit, I'll just cut everything. I'll cut every expense. I'll stop spending entirely. Hold on a second, because that creates a whole new trap. Cutting back on every expense might feel like you're being smart, but in reality, Cutting alone is rarely what makes people rich. You know, there's this cultural obsession in America with cutting every expense. Cut the lattes, cut the avocado toast, cut Netflix, cut the gym, cut. It's very puritanical in a way. Let's say Chad saves $40 a week by cutting back on coffee. Okay, his grandpa was in the Great Depression, so his whole family history has been all about cut back, live small, live a minimalist life. And he goes, oh, I did it. I achieved what they told me to. I'm so good. Meanwhile, you have another friend of his, Peter, who negotiates a $20,000 salary increase. Who do you think's better off? I'll give you a hint. The guy who negotiated the salary can buy as much coffee as he wants and save and invest and travel more. Yet for some reason, people love to glorify frugality.
So when I save money to buy the house, I pretty much cut off frivolous spending, cut off a lot of socializing, everything. Save. Gotta hit that number. There was no more Starbucks. There was no more coffee. There was no nothing.
Hyper frugality even. You'll actually see fire forums where people celebrate living like monks to save 70% of their income. And then 3 years later, they go, hey, I saved $1 million. Actually really unhappy. Maybe I should have spent some of that money to go somewhere. You'll see influencers talking about how they hacked their grocery budget down to $27 a week. Guys, did you know that not only can you buy the pickles from Costco, but you can actually freeze them, and that way you can preserve them for even longer? Listen, I don't have anything against shopping at Costco. I don't have anything against cutting unnecessary expenses, okay? There's nothing wrong with being thoughtful about where your money goes. But the reality is there's a limit to how much you can cut. There's no limit to how much you can earn. And truthfully, I would rather spend my time learning how to build the skill of earning $10,000 more per year than saving $300 by skipping coffee, a decision that I have to make almost every day. So instead, my philosophy is to focus on building high-value skills. Get really good at my job, learn to negotiate my salary, build the skills that companies will pay a premium for, make extra money on the side using my Earn 1K program, which will show you how to take the ideas you already have that you're already good at and turn them into side income. Earning more gives you way more financial freedom than cutting expenses ever will. So please stop obsessing about $3 questions. Start building your rich life instead. And you can get that free conscious spending plan template in the description right now to help get you started. By the way, in the comments, tell me what is one thing that you love to spend money on guilt-free? These are the types of questions I love to ask my community, not what do you love to cut back on? Hey everybody, I canceled my Disney Plus subscription for 2 months. I saved $16, but I'm gonna resubscribe because Andor is coming out. Stop! What a waste of time. Remember, once you start earning more, you can stop worrying about these $3 questions entirely. And now let's move on to one of the biggest culprits that traps people financially. We almost never talk about it because in America it's taboo, and that is your vehicle. This trap has ruined more finances than any avocado toast ever could. The average car payment today is $700 a month. That's not even counting gas, insurance, maintenance, parking tickets, registration, or any of those phantom costs. Add all those up, you're spending over $1,000 a month to sit in your gas-guzzling vehicle, going through the Chick-fil-A drive-thru and then complaining, oh, inflation is so insane. Now, people justify this by saying, I need reliable transportation. Or, this is my favorite one of all, it's for the kids. I need a 6,000-pound vehicle for the kids. Notice nobody actually talks about how much the car truly costs them in total. If anything, they only talk about the monthly payment. The car payment's only $650. Once you factor in all the costs, it's more than double that. That is the trap. That's the trap that dealerships love. They can also stretch out the loan for 6 to 7 years, which Americans love to do. Lower monthly payment, even though you are paying way more overall. Can I just be really direct with you? You should stop looking at monthly payments and you should start looking at TCO, total cost of ownership. I'm gonna give you an example. Kevin and Michelle from my podcast, they had a very good combined household income of $216,000, but they were drowning in debt. Why? Because they had a Mercedes and BMW car payments plus gas, which cost them almost $2,500 every month. That's actually one of the highest transportation costs I've ever seen. Now, I know that that is outrageously expensive. I'm showing you that example for a reason. Your vehicle costs are probably way higher than you think if you factor everything in. And that is the lesson. Don't buy more car than you can afford. You can buy a reliable used car in cash, or if you want to buy a new car, you should make sure that you stretch that ownership over as many years as possible. Please remember, I kept my car for 19 years. If I can do it, I know you can do it as well. Also, you probably don't need a $75,000 truck to get to work, okay? I don't care what your bros say. Freaking diesel. Oh, I got the Hemi. So cool. Yeah, you know what else is cool? Having millions of dollars in your retirement portfolio and driving a nice car. You could do that. But if you get a $75,000 truck, which probably adds up to about $125,000 TCO, maybe not. Also, can I just suggest something that's gonna make all of you gasp in horror? You know, it's actually possible for some of you living in cities to take public transportation. Oh my God, Ramit said it. Public transportation is so crazy. It's one of the things I actually see when I speak to couples who live in a big city is they're often saving $1,500 a month on transportation costs because they take the bus or they take the train. It's quite remarkable, but I know the vast majority of Americans, that's like me telling you the sky is orange, so just forget it, all right? Quick question, have you ever been told that owning a house is a great financial decision? Who told you that? Who told you? Comment below and tell me where you heard this myth, because that's exactly what it is for a lot of people, a myth. You know, most people think buying a house is a smart move. And the way they do it in their head is they go, buy a house, build equity, and then somehow some magic happens and then profit comes out the other end. Without knowing the true costs, buying a house can become one of the worst financial decisions of people's lives. Sometimes buying can be a great financial decision. Other times, not so good. Here's what often happens. People don't actually know how much they can afford. They definitely don't run the numbers. And deep down, they assume that buying is always better than renting. But then they buy and reality hits. Every dollar's going into their mortgage. They're stressed out because they did not plan for a $6,000 repair that they have to do. Every year, something happens that they did not plan for. Tax increase. They're having trouble taking money and investing now, but they tell themselves, well, we got the house. One day this house will be paid off. This is not the way it's supposed to go with your money. Being house poor is actually a terrible affliction because people think they are doing the right thing, but they're actually trapped. Here's a guideline I want you to know. Housing, in general, should be 28% of your gross income or less. That is total cost, everything, sprinklers, the roof repair 9 years from now, all of it. Now in high cost areas, you can push that number a little bit up because housing is really expensive. Maybe you go to 32%, maybe 33% if you don't have debt. But beyond that, it becomes really, really risky. So before you buy, I want you to run the numbers carefully. Once you figure out what your monthly mortgage would be, I recommend you add 30, at the high end, 50% on top of that to account for the phantom costs associated with owning a house. That is the number you should use to see if you can afford it. You can also use a number of online calculators to help you decide all these phantom costs that most people do not calculate in. And remember, you can rent. If you need flexibility or if buying does not make sense, please know that buying is not always a better financial decision. In fact, the smartest homeowners I know wait until it's the right time, financially, emotionally, logistically. Also keep in mind that I have rented for over 20 years and have made way more money renting and investing the difference than owning. This is why you got to run the numbers. Now, even if you avoid the big lifestyle mistakes, there's a sneakier set of traps that I see holding people back, even highly educated, well-intentioned people. And these are the fake smart money moves. Let's talk about them next. By the way, if you want to stop obsessing over tiny money decisions and actually learn how to grow your income and invest automatically and finally feel good about spending money, this is what we do on this channel every week. So hit subscribe, and I'm gonna show you how to actually build your rich life on offense instead of playing defense with your money. And stick around to the end of this section because I'm gonna show you exactly how I set up my automated money system, the same one that I use to grow my wealth without a bunch of spreadsheets or stress. Once you see it, you're never gonna go back. Now, there are 3 types of money people I constantly run into. Which one are you? Are you the researcher, the budget hero, or the optimizer? Let's find out. The researcher. You confuse learning with doing. Researchers say things like, I just need to learn a little bit more before I get started. I need to read a few more books. Which forum is the right one for this esoteric question? I'll start investing once the market calms down. Well, on the surface, it sounds smart. You're being cautious. You're educating yourself. But for a lot of these people, what ends up happening is they use research as an excuse to not take action. Truth is, you're never gonna perfectly feel ready to invest. You will never have all the information, and no amount of articles will actually substitute for getting started. I want to share something that's going to change how you think about this forever. The cost of waiting is higher than the cost of starting imperfectly. If you invest $500 a month starting today, 30 years from now, you'd have about $580,000. If you wait just 5 years before starting, because you're busy reading a bunch of articles, you'll only have $390,000. That small delay cost you almost $200,000. By trying to feel ready, you cost yourself years of growth. So instead of doing way more research, start small. Open your 401k or Roth IRA. Set up an automatic transfer of $100 a month and tell your account to invest that money in a target date fund or low-cost index fund. Get in the game. You can always tweak things as you go on, but just get that water trickling out into your account, that money flowing, because that is how you build confidence, by doing it. Now, you remember I mentioned number 11 in the intro? This is it, and it traps even the smartest people. It looks responsible, but it quietly ruins your finances. The budget hero. You focus on small wins, not building wealth. This is one of my biggest pet peeves, and honestly, this is where 90% of personal finance content really obsesses about. Budget heroes focus on the wrong questions. Should I switch from Netflix Premium to standard with ads? Should I make coffee at home instead of going to the coffee shop? Should I buy Jif peanut butter or the generic version? Let me create a multifactorial spreadsheet. These are what I call $3 questions. They make you feel like you are working on your finances, but in reality, they make almost no difference in the long term. You could cut lattes for 10 years and still not afford a house. The problem is that in society, we are told to focus on $3 questions, and we do it because it's easy. It's easy to cancel Netflix. It's easy to guilt yourself over a coffee. It's easy to feel superior when you say, no, I'm not gonna buy the Ritz crackers. I will get the generic one. But these are meaningless decisions. These are not the actual questions that move the needle. The real questions you should be asking are $30,000 questions. How can I start automatically investing every single month and increase my contribution rate by 1% every December? How can I negotiate a $15,000 raise? How can I pay off $50,000 of student loans systematically and maybe even pay an extra $150 a month to shave that down by months or even years? These are big questions that are meaningful. Get these right. You never need to get into the weeds worrying about $3 questions. I want you to focus on high leverage, big financial decisions. And once you handle the big wins, you actually don't have to obsess over tiny expenses. You want to buy a coffee? Buy the coffee. That's the whole point of a rich life. But sometimes people do focus on the big decisions and then they fall into this trap instead. The optimizer. You obsess over details, not results. Hold on, I'm looking in the mirror right now because we're all looking at an optimizer or former optimizer. That is me. You know these people. I know these people because I was one. They obsess over credit card rewards. They spend 40 hours comparing an ETF expense ratio that differs by 0.01%. They tweak their investment allocation every month and they calculate spreadsheets about retiring at 58 and a half versus 59 years old. It feels productive. You're optimizing. You're detail oriented. The truth is most of this optimization makes actually no meaningful difference. When you compare a savings account that's paying you 4.3% versus 4%, it actually makes very little difference, especially on a $10,000 balance. And meanwhile, you're still not earning more income. You're still not building your business. You're definitely not living your rich life because you have become lost in a spreadsheet. Ironically, the people who obsess over optimization end up more anxious because they live in constant analysis mode. You know, I was talking about this on my social media channels where I told young men in particular, I said, one of the best things that you can do to live a happier, better life is to automatically ban the word optimization. I find that a lot of men, young men in particular, tend to love looking at the world through the optimization lens. I need to optimize this. I need to optimize that. Oh, I can't go out with my friends this week because if I took that 2 hours and put it into this and compounded over 34 years, blah, 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 blah. Let me show you how to do something differently. I call this the 85% rule. Automate your savings and investing. Create a simple diversified portfolio. Review your plan once or twice a year. That's it. Set it up, automate it, move on. That's a rich life. The next one shocks me every time because it traps even the most disciplined people. And yet it's hands down one of the biggest reasons that people stay stuck financially. Even after they know exactly what to do, they sabotage it by trying to manually control everything. I cannot count the number of times I've heard guests on my podcast say things like, I like to log in every week and transfer my money myself. I manually pay my bills so I don't miss a payment. I don't trust automation. Just listen to Megan's response when I asked her about automation.
I want to hear why it's manual. Why does a dentist have manual?
I don't trust the robots.
Huh?
I don't trust automatic withdrawals because I like to see the bill to catch any fraudulent charges before paying it.
Paying your bills manually gives you the illusion of control. But when you are manually transferring money here and there, you can forget them. You can pay them late. Maybe you're sick, or maybe you're traveling and you didn't get to them. And worst of all, you are constantly stressing about tiny questions. You're wasting mental energy managing things that should be automatic. It actually shows the perfect example of people playing small. People who insist on playing small are just signaling that they have an inability to delegate. Because if they can't delegate something that can be automated by a computer, they definitely cannot delegate other parts of their life. Automation actually gives you control. Automation can be set up like this. You direct deposit your paycheck into your checking account, automatic transfers to your savings and investment accounts, automatic bill pay for recurring expenses, and of course your credit cards are paid in full every month. When your money is automated, you wake up every month wealthier without thinking about it, without trying. That is how real wealth is built. If you want to finally stop feeling stuck and start living your rich life, download the Conscious Spending Plan below and then watch this next. It's the fastest way to apply everything we just talked about.